All right, welcome to the Krug Show. Hope everybody's having a great Monday. Kyle Shanahan just spoke. We got a lot to talk about. The Brandon Aiyuk story, that's out there. We got a lot to get to on a Monday. Let's go. Off and running on a Monday on the Krug Show. Hope everybody's having a great one. Rainy, cold Monday. Like the kind of day that just makes you go, the holidays is probably around the corner. Anything to avoid talking Niner ball. Now we're going to talk ball right here. Kyle Shanahan just talked. Let's get into it. We're brought to you, of course, by Pig and a Pickle, but immediately we'll get into it. We'll talk about our sponsors in a bit. Kyle Shanahan just spoke to the media just now, and we got a little breakdown of a number of different things. And he started, of course, like he always starts, with the injuries. Fred Warner, surgery scheduled for tomorrow for Fred. Scheduled for tomorrow. And Matt Mayoko actually asked him about his time frame to return. I thought that was kind of the funniest one of all, because it's like, his time frame to return is 2026. He's done for the year, and Matt knew that, of course. But Matt was like, "Hey, do you think he'll be back for training camp and this and that?" And it's like, "Hey, who knows? We gotta, I gotta prepare for the Falcons, and that's a way in the distance deal." So no time frame for his return. Surgery tomorrow. Dislocated and broken ankle. Our thoughts and prayers go to Fred. I mean, what an awesome guy he is. Kyle talked about it in the presser. There's, no one person's going to replace Fred Warner. He'll have to be replaced by Tatum Bethune. He'll have to be replaced by Nick Martin. He'll have to be replaced by, other guys who do other things as far as leadership and that kind of thing. Guys like Demo saying, "Hey, I need to step up." Yeah, you need to step up. Everybody needs to step up. But it's like some people seem like they were confusing that with, who's going to be, stepping into Fred's shoes. It's going to be Bethune who's going to wear the green dot without Fred in there as the middle backer, who's a big responsibility on him. But that's how it started. Fred Warner, surgery tomorrow, ankle, major dislocation, fracture, the whole deal. No time frame for his return. Done for all of 2025. Another kick to the gut. The Niners lose Nick Bosa and Fred Warner, and we haven't even gotten to week 7 yet. And it's like, wow, that's rough. Other news in the injury front. Jordan Watkins, on the good note, is going to return to practice this week. And this guy can really play. I mean, this is going to be a guy who I really think Niner fans are going to love, Jordan Watkins, because the Niners don't have anybody like Jordan Watkins. The Niners don't have that 4-3 burner who can stretch the field and create space and still has the durability and kind of thickness to be able to run through tackles. He's got strength, but he's also got 4.37 speed, and he's got experience in the SEC. I love Jordan Watkins. He was one of the guys I really wanted the Niners to get in the draft process. So the others were Nick Martin and CJ West. But Watkins returns to practice this week, so that's good. What's not good is it doesn't sound like Ricky Pearsall is going to be back for Atlanta. He's got a knee injury, and we'll see. They'll reevaluate it later in the week, but it didn't sound like he's back for Atlanta. Purdy, he's got the toe. I don't know what his situation is going to be. We'll see. I mean, he's going to probably try to stretch it this week and see if he can go. Well, I don't know if he can or can't. I would be like, hey, look, if you got turf toe, you got turf toe. Get healthy. Sit out of 3, 4, 5 weeks. Get that thing right. But there's a lot of pressure to play. He wants to play, I'm sure. So he's got the toe. Yatir Gross-Matos with the hamstring. Kevin Givens with the pec. Kittle with the hamstring is going to practice this week, or at least they're hopeful that he will practice this week. So maybe Kittle comes back for Atlanta, which is necessary because the 49ers can't run the ball seemingly without him. So hopefully he makes a huge impact. And the rest of those guys we'll have to see. But Fred done for the year. Watkins returns this week to practice. Kyle was asked, hey, you got a 4-2 record, but how do you kind of come to grips with the season where you're 4-2, but you have these major injuries? Bosa and Warner are already done for the year. Those are your two best defensive players, your two most important defensive players, your two greatest front seven players are done for the year. But at the same time, on one hand, that's hugely negative. On the other hand, you're 4-2, and you've got one of the better records in pro football. And Kyle just said, hey, look, it's like where are we going to go from here? Kind of a spot right now as a football team. He's like, Tatum Bethune did some really good things. And, I'm not surprised by that, by the way, because Tatum Bethune's a good player and he got in better shape. His only thing was that he lacks a little speed. He's got great instincts. This guy's a big time hitter. He's a bigger hitter than Fred Warner. And this guy's a thumper, but he's not the coverage player. Doesn't move like Fred. But you know what? He got himself in quite a bit better shape. He's kind of redone his body from year 1 to year 2. I talked to him about it in the locker room a few weeks ago. This guy's ready to roll, man. He's ready to roll, and he is a thumper. He loves to hit. And Shanahan said, hey, we have players we can win with. He basically said, hey, how do I come to grips with our 4-2 record versus we got major injuries? He's like, we got to clean up our mistakes. We're going to have to play better football. Everybody's going to have to rise to the occasion. It's not going to be one guy. It's not going to be like, oh, Tatum Bethune stepped in and, it's going to be more. It's going to take more than that. But Bethune, he feels good about Bethune, and I would too. Bethune's good. He's faster than he was. He knows the defense. He can hit like a truck. He's aggressive as hell. He's a good player. It's not like I'm not concerned at all, but they were not stopping the run with Fred in the first quarter of that game. Rachaad White had a 10-yard run on first down on one of those series. They weren't necessarily shutting down the run before he went out. So we'll see. We'll see where it goes. That next man up thing sounds good, but it's all predicated on who the hell is that next guy. If the next guy is Steve Young and you're going from Joe Montana, you're going to be all right. But if the next guy is, Jim Druckenmiller, you're screwed. Next man up, success or failure is predicated on who that next man is. Kyle was asked, hey, what about that touchdown to the motion man where the guy went in motion and then basically it was like a busted play? And he's like, did Fred, I think it was Barrows asked the question, does Fred's absence hurt on that play? And Kyle was like, yeah, absolutely. That's kind of one of the things I do really like about Kyle is I like how he, is kind of a straight shooter. If you ask him something that's true, he doesn't typically run from it. So not having Fred and you got a guy switching from one side of the formation to another side of the formation, and he's going from, in the backfield. Now he's out wide and he gets a free release and he's down. He basically made it sound like probably Bethune's mistake. And he's like, he probably won't make that mistake this week when he gets more reps. So that was Tampa Bay's offensive coordinator saying, they just lost a guy. Where can we attack? And that was good football right there by Tampa Bay's offensive coordinator. He was asked about Demo Lenore, who said, I guess it's on me now, because they lost Bosa and Warner. And Lenore, I love that about Lenore. Lenore's like, hey, you know what? I'm a leader. Lenore's not like, I'm just going to go along or I'm just along for the ride. He wants to win and he wants to lead them to victory. This is a great football player, and and Kyle recognizes it, and he said, I like Demo talking like that. But as Lenore, he also pointed out Lenore will not be making the defensive calls. He will not be having the same impact that, a linebacker like Fred is going to have on the team, but it doesn't matter. He understands where Demo's coming from. He says, I like that Demo thinks like that. I like that he's talking like that. He likes guys who are like, hey, you know what? We got to step it up. We got to have increased accountability because we just lost one of our main dudes. So that was my read on that. Kyle was asked about Fred Warner addressing the team after the game, which, I would have loved to have seen that. That's Fred's a special guy, but the thing about Fred is he understands at this point who he is and what he means to the team. So he understands he's one of the vocal leaders of the franchise. He's one of the leaders of the team. He's one of the leaders in the room, and he doesn't run from it. That some guys, it's they don't wear that easily. It's like it's kind of a burden. Fred is just he's like, hey, you know what? That's what it is, and he embraces it. And those guys really do follow him. I mean, he's not. You don't just lead because you say you're the leader. You've got to be the kind of person that people want to follow. You want to be a leader, be the kind of person that people want to follow, be the kind of person that people want to emulate, be the kind of person that works really hard, be the kind of person where it really, 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 really matters to them. That's when you become a leader, is when it matters to you and you work really hard. And you're one of the guys who doesn't just talk the talk, but walks it, and lives it. And that's Fred. So he addressed the team after the game, and I'm sure it was powerful, and I'm sure it was something along the lines of, guys, keep going. We can do this. And I'm sure that's the message that I'm sure these guys need to hear as well. Couple other things. He was asked about Jason Pinnock, and Pinnock went from having, being the starting safety and getting all the snaps to getting hardly any snaps. And basically Shanahan said, hey, we made the decision to start Jair Brown. We wanted to do a rotation. Maybe they felt like, who knows? I mean, he said like, hey, we felt like Jair Brown was coming on and he deserved more time. So, we're not at practice. We're at the beginning of practice, but maybe Jair's playing really well in practice. But it sounds like Shanahan's a fan of Jair and wanted to work him in. And it's also sounded like with with Mustafa coming back, but not being all the way back, they wanted to have like a rotation, and maybe they didn't feel like Pinnock was going to be open to a rotation. I don't know. But they rotated Mustafa with Siegel and started Jair opposite. So Siegel and Mustafa wind up sharing. So basically Jair went in as the starter. Pinnock went out. Kyle said they were going to play Pinnock in like big nickel situations where they go with three safeties, that three safety look, and they just didn't play a lot of it. So that's why Pinnock didn't play. Pinnock is still a highly valued guy. I mean, he really is. He's a smart player. He's a versatile player. He's a corner. He's a safety. He's a blitzer. He's a line of scrimmage disruptor. He's a smart player. I mean, Salah's going to utilize him. But, you got some other players there that you'd like to take a look at. I think the future at the position is Mustafa and Siegel and Brown. Now, some people don't think Brown is part of the future, but I do. I think those are your three safeties going forward. I think, if anybody has a shot of ending this streak where the Niners can't get an interception, it's been 12 games. It's Jair Brown. Jair Brown had 10 interceptions, I think, back-to-back seasons for Penn State. He's a productive interceptor. If you play him enough, if you get him out there, he'll pick off a pass or two. I'll make the prediction. Jair Brown will be the guy who comes up with who ends the interception drought. It will be Jair, the man they call Tig. So Kyle kind of explained that. And then Kyle was asked the question, are you guys less likely to be, aggressive traders now that Warner's done for the year? And Kyle's like, I don't think he kind of said, hey, look, we're not necessarily going to be aggressive with, he's like, doesn't really change our mindset because he doesn't want, it's not that they don't want to be aggressive, but I don't think if they think of themselves as they're going to try to be aggressive, they're trying to play it to, because if you say you're going to be aggressive, then you're going to pay more in a trade. If you say you're going to be aggressive, everybody else gets the clips from around the league and they say, oh, hey, by the way, Shanahan, do you see what Shanahan? He said they're going to be aggressive. He's on record with the fans of saying they want to make a trade. So ask for the moon. And when he says no, say, oh, really? You've already told the fans you're going to make a trade. So he's not, this, are you more likely or less likely to be aggressive at the trade deadline with Warner going out? Shanahan immediately changed the whole narrative. He's like, I don't know that we were planning on being aggressive anyway. He's like, we want to get somebody, if we can get somebody that can help us this year and won't hurt us next year. He's made that statement a few times. So that's NFL head coach dodge right there. He just dodged. He dodged. He just isn't, he just threw out some stuff and he kind of dodged. The reality is that Lynch is going to do what Lynch has popularized the midseason trade. If he can do something to help this team, he's going to do it. But he's also not going to give away day 1 or day 2 draft picks, nor in 2026, nor should he. I wouldn't. Not because this team's not worth it, just because that's where you're going to build up your offensive line. Now, this offensive line needs to be rebuilt. I think we can all agree on that. How is it going to be rebuilt? Well, part of the way it's going to be rebuilt is going to be rebuilt by the draft. And that first round draft pick is most likely going to be a tackle. But who knows? Any of those day 1 or day 2 picks could wind up being tackles. They could wind up taking a linebacker in the first round and taking 2 offensive linemen on day 2. But those first 3 rounds of picks, rounds 1, 2, and 3, they don't want to move those picks. And I don't think they wanted to move those picks before. And now with Warner out for the year, they really don't want to move those picks. But, if you're a head coach, you're also trying to lead the room. So you're not going to, yes, that injury changed our mindset. You're trying to tell everybody, hey, don't overreact. We're okay. We're good. How do you think the players are going to hear the we're okay, we're good, let's go, we can do this, if the guy who leads the charge is like, we have to make a trade? If we don't, we're screwed. It's just not going to happen that way. So you got to think these things through. Shanahan also talked about Malik Mustafa, and he said, hey, played really well. And now it's about how does his body feel? Played about 20 plays. He said he looked good. They love Mustafa. I love Mustafa. Mustafa is just an awesome player. But I think their plan, this is another one. I like this plan. This was a good plan. Don't just get him out there, throw him out there, full bore. No, because this guy will crush people, and he just plays so hard. Get him out there for 20, 25 plays. Let him get his feet wet. Let him get his bearings. Let him get his balance. You forget how bad defensive players look in that first preseason game, because that's essentially where he's at. In that first preseason game, you'd swear some of these guys never played football before. It's like they don't know how to tackle. They don't know how to break down. These things have to be practiced. So, this was the beginning, and he had a good week of practice, and he's a really good football player. But I liked what they did with him this week. 20 plays. Shanahan said he looked good. Now it's a matter of how does his body feel, and we'll see where it goes from there. I like that approach with Mustafa. That's doing right by your player. I think. Couple other notes from the Shanahan presser. He was asked about Jair Brown. He said he did a decent job. He said he was solid. Shanahan's definitely a fan of Jair Brown. He was asked about Dom Pooney. And you know what? Shanahan, he's so diplomatic, which is why the players seemingly will play for him, is that he never buries his guys. About Pooney, he said, he's played better before. I mean, that's the nicest way possible of saying he's playing like ass. Are you kidding me? That penalty on 4th and inches to make it 4th and 6? Oh, poor Dom Pooney. He had a rough one. Shanahan said the injury may have set him back, but he said, I have a lot of confidence in Dom. We think he's going to play better. He has played better before, though. That's what he said. And then he was asked to evaluate Connor Colby, which is just, and then at the first, I think he started talking about how Ben Barch may return in a few weeks. And then he just said, Colby's getting experience that will be valuable later in his career. So, in other words, he's struggling. He's struggling mightily, but he's getting valuable experience that will help him later in life, his NFL life. Probably the biggest news of the day, Kittle. He hopes to return soon, and maybe as soon as Sunday against the Falcons. That would be great. I mean, that, let's be honest, the Niners are biggest problem they have right now is they cannot run the ball. And several things are emanating from that singular issue. That's a singular issue. They cannot run the football. But out of that comes offensive imbalance, comes 40 pass attempts from your quarterback, exacerbates and highlights the struggles of your O-line. And then all of a sudden you look up and everybody's hurt and you have no offensive balance. So it's amazing how one thing can kind of mushroom into so much more in a sport like pro football, where everything's kind of dependent on it's like a house of cards. You have one area you're struggling and suddenly you've got 5 areas where you're struggling. So Kittle hopes to return, and the Niners are hoping, I'm sure, that what returns with it is the Niners run game, because they cannot run the ball. Then probably the other most juicy part of this thing was the Juwan Jennings thing. Shanahan and Jennings were yelling at each other. People saw it on the sideline. And Kyle said that he thinks Juwan's in a good mental space. He says he's an emotional player. He likes that about him. He's got a lot of love for Juwan, he said, but these guys were yelling at each other. I don't know if it was over reps, not seeing the ball, what exactly, if it's about incentives, if it's about just frustration and in a game that was very tough, if the ball didn't come to Juwan, if he's really playing with 5 broken ribs and 3 other injuries, he's probably not feeling too good when he's saying these things. So you got to think about that. You always got to think about a player's pain, situation, because sometimes guys vent and they're in a lot of pain. They're in a lot of pain. So you just got to know that that's the game. I mean, that's what's going on with a lot of these guys. But Kyle said he thought, Juwan's in a good mental space, and that, he's, it's just, that's it. He was asked about, hey, you guys were yelling at each other, and he's like, look, it's an emotional game, and football, things get heated, basically, and you have a lot of heated conversations. And the difference between it's not Deloitte and Touche, all right? It's not an accounting firm where people, I'm sure, are really polite and nice to each other. You're not working for Google. It's the NFL, and it's volatile, and it's, 17 work days a year, 17 Sundays. I mean, just think about that. How much more volatility would there be at your place of work if there were only 17 work days a year? That right there would change the dynamic, and it does. It absolutely does. Then you factor in it's on TV, it's big money, there's type A personalities, there's ego, there's emotion, there's, life-threatening injury and all these different things. And it just, you can't compare their communication to our communication. You just can't. Totally different deal. In the Canadian League, we'd watch film, and I've seen coaches literally brawl over, hey, that was on the safety. No, that was on the linebacker. What? Now, hands are being thrown, stuff's getting broken. It's an emotional game. There's a lot of type A guys. But Kyle basically said, he's like, we're good. He's like, Juwan's good. He's in a good mental space. And then he talked a little bit about Brandon Aiyuk and was asked about Aiyuk, and he just said, "Hey, look, there's no time frame." Then he said, "Week 10, no time frame, week 10." Um, Hopefully he's getting closer, but Kyle was saying maybe week 10. Like he had originally thought week 10 was like, uh, what he was hoping for, which is what I was hoping for. This is what I talked about this all off season. We're like, oh, Aiyuk, and people are like, he'll be back. He'll be back really, really soon. I'm like, no, he's not. He's not going to be back really soon. Are you lucky if he plays at all this year? I'm like, he's going to play in November or December. I'm like, I kept saying Thanksgiving. I'll stick with that. Thanksgiving. So we're not even at Halloween. It's middle of October. Thanksgiving is 6 weeks away. I think that's about where he's at. And then the question is where the Niners going to be at when he's ready to return. And is it in their best interest and maybe in his best interest to just tuck tail and come back in 2026? But Shanahan said, hopefully he's getting closer. No time frame, week 10. Week 10 is what his original thought was. All right. I bring that up because in the midst of the Aiyuk thing, Coach Yak had a very interesting little tweet today asking, is there more Brandon Aiyuk drama? Okay. And this is interesting. He's like, there appears to be frustration brewing on both sides surrounding Brandon Aiyuk's eventual return to the field. This is from NBC Sports for the 49ers. Evident from the wide receiver's social media. Oh, God. Oh. This wide receiver, pro athlete, social media diva crap is just so tired. So tired. So you guys get where I'm going. Okay, so basically this is there appears to be frustration brewing with Aiyuk's return to the field, according to his social media. Aiyuk deleted all evidence. Where did he get this idea? Aiyuk deleted all evidence of the 49ers from his Instagram account and has unfollowed the 49ers. This is not a new phenomenon. Yeah, you think? Aiyuk has unfollowed the franchise before during his hold-in while undergoing contract negotiations last summer. So I don't know what's going on here. I really don't. I have no source on this. I can't tell you anything. I've been at practice. I've seen him out there. I don't know if I saw him out there in the last few days, but I saw him out there. He seemed like he was chomping at the bit to come back. Shanahan said, or Lynch said, he's a ways off, which he is a ways off. I don't think there's any doubt about that. I don't know if that maybe upset him, but I guess this goes on to say up until approximately 2 weeks ago, Aiyuk had been very visible during practice, running alongside his fellow receivers during an open portion of practice. Yeah, maybe once. I mean, just one sprint in sweats. Aiyuk's speed and agility during those sessions gave the impression that a return from a devastating knee injury could be soon. I mean, only based on if you don't know absolutely nothing about what you're watching. There's a big difference between sprinting once down an NFL sideline after a drill and being an NFL wide receiver, and all the stop and start and all the times you got to stop down and all the pressure on your joints and on your ligaments. I mean, it's night and day. Okay, and then he goes on to say that Kyle Shanahan. Let's see, wait a second. Oh, that was my spot there. Kyle Shanahan was asked about Aiyuk's return back on September 26th. And he explained that was not the case and why the receiver was not close to having his practice window opened. He says, I think it's more like when we get a kind of probably an exact target date. This is a quote from Shanahan. That's when you look at it that way. I think we're getting close to that, but just not to have a target date. That's when I start thinking about it. And we don't have that yet. So we're waiting until they give us one. Lynch was in lockstep with Shanahan when addressing the timetable. He said he's working hard And we'll just continue to do that, and we'll be a better team when Brandon's out there. So we look forward to that day, but it's not close. So he's saying it's not close. He went out in week 7 last year in the Kansas City game. Okay. But see, if it had been a regular ACL, then I would have said, okay, maybe he's back by week 7, roughly, of this year. But it wasn't. He suffered an ACL and an MCL injury, along with cartilage damage and some meniscus damage. So he was coming, he's a good receiver and he's a great athlete. He's coming off a really good year in 2023, 7 touchdowns, 1,300 plus yards. No doubt. If he can come back, the Niners have another playmaker. But then it goes on to say the possibility of that happening this season is becoming less likely if it happens at all. All right. So there you go. What does it all mean? I don't know. I know you guys come to me and say, give us some insight. I have none, I promise you. No, all I would say is that I do think that because of the length of the rehab and how it's going to go into the year, there was definitely always a possibility that the 49ers would have a bad year, and that by the time he's ready to return, they're not really in any kind of a race. But now they're off to a 4-2 start. And I think you could probably say that that's not the case, that, he potentially can come back this year and help them. Then the question is, what's his physical condition and how much damage was done? How diminished is he? What kind of, the other thing too, it's like the players show up, they train in the off season OTAs, they show up for training camp. A lot of guys are in shape. Then you start getting into football shape. The guys across the league are all in football shape. And then if you're not playing, you can get non-football shape, but then like you can get in good shape, but not necessarily football shape. So just because you get in shape and you're ready to roll doesn't mean you're ready to play football. So, that's the question, is how long, what's reasonable? I would say week 10, week 12, in that range is probably reasonable. I think that's probably the best idea. We get this from Brad Graham. Brad Graham is saying this report is patently false. Brandon Aiyuk never refollowed the 49ers. His IG has looked the same for months. He has a link to his profile page directly pointing back to the 49ers. Then NBC, 49ers and NBC says Brandon Aiyuk once again deleted all evidence of the 49ers from his Instagram account and unfollowed the team. Brad is saying, no, that is not the case. And then update, what is it? Do we have another update here? 49ers Brandon Aiyuk social media story has been deleted. So there you go. It was, that's how fast things happen. Just because a story was deleted doesn't mean that it's not true. It just means that it was deleted. As far as, I'll say this, I hadn't noticed any vibe or anything around Aiyuk. And I had seen him, as far as when exactly, I would say in the last 2 weeks, I saw him at practice. Obviously not practicing, just standing around the other receivers. But other than that, as far as, there's always kind of been this, the 49ers have regretted doing that contract since they signed it. And if they could part ways with that contract, they would. I don't know if that's the case or if that's just scuttle and rumor, but there's been that thought. As far as need, I don't know that you've got so many wide receivers now. Watkins coming back, Robinson's back, Bourne is there. He's had 2 back-to-back really good games. It's like if Jennings isn't happy, I could see them saying goodbye to him at the trade deadline. If there was a team out there that would even take Aiyuk's contract in any way, I could definitely see the 49ers being willing to move him as well. They just don't. I don't think they're going to pay big money for a receiver. They've already paid big money for one in Aiyuk. I think they regret it, and I don't think they're going to pay big money for Jennings. So if they could get out from either of those players, they probably would. Now they really, really like both players. They love Jennings, and they respect the heck out of what Aiyuk can do as a player for sure. So they know they've got two really good players. I just don't think they want to make that investment. And I think as time goes on, it'll be interesting to see what the Niners do going forward. But I don't see them making big, sizable investments in wide receivers. I think that's a lesson that they've learned. I think they moved off from Debo. I think if they'd like to move on from Aiyuk, I think they will move on eventually from JJ. And when I say eventually, I mean very soon. So I think that's the way it's going. So we'll see. We shall see. Okay. So there you go. The story has been deleted, and there you go. All right, let's hit the chat. And we should tell everybody we are brought to you by Sleeper. Maybe we'll do our Sleeper lineup right here, because the entire 49er football season this year is on Sleeper on the Krug Show. Thank you to Sleeper. Presented by Sleeper, the fastest growing fantasy platform in the world. It's a one-stop shop. You get blazing fast news, real-time stats, group chat, season-long leagues, and of course, Sleeper picks for daily fantasy. Use that promo code Larry, Larry, easy to remember. Sleeper will match your first deposit up to $100. Links in the description. Terms and conditions apply. We've crushed it on Sleeper. I'm loving Sleeper. We do it every week. I'm loving it, and we've won almost every week. We won again last week. It was amazing. So it's very easy to win. I mean, if I can win, you can win. And you get a $100 deposit match. Just use code Larry. All right. Should we make a lineup? Let's do it. Let's make a lineup. All right. This is for, what are we looking at here? This is for the Monday. This is for tonight. We're going Bears, Washington tonight. Okay, Bears, Washington. Who do we like? Give me Krosky Merritt. Krosky Merritt's going to have a day. I like Krosky Merritt. He's playing well. Give me, ooh, that's a lot of rush yards. 69.5. That's a lot. Do they have fantasy points? How many fantasy points? You can go anytime touchdown. Yeah, let's go anytime touchdown. Anytime touchdown for Krosky Merritt. I would have gone yardage, but that yardage seems a little high. All right. Debo, I don't think is going to go. Debo's not playing from what I hear. So all the more touches for Krosky Merritt. All right, let's look at the Bears. The Bears, who do the Bears have? Caleb. Give me Caleb. Caleb doesn't throw picks, huh? I don't love any of these. 20. No, I don't want to do Caleb. No Caleb. Give me who else do we? Yeah, let's go with Dunze. Let's go with Dunze with the anytime touchdown. We'll go more on the half touchdown on Dunze. He's coming on. He's playing well. Bobby Wagner. Let me see Bobby Wagner. Ooh, that's a fat number. 9.5 tackles on Bobby Wagner. 3.5 assists, 5.5 solo, half sack. I'm going double digits on Bobby Wags. Give me 9.5, more than 9.5. All right, let me go one more. One more, because we'll go Krosky, Merida, Dunze, Wagner. Let me get one more Bear. They have Luther Burden, Luther Beast of Burden. Where's he at? So you can go 1.5 receptions. That's it. 17 receiving yards, 17.5 receiving yards, or an anytime touchdown. Give me 17.5 receiving yards more. Luther Burden. He's coming on. So there we go. If we $5 to win 51-40, we need Krosky Merritt to just score a touchdown. We have Luther Burden to have 18 yards receiving. We have Roma Dunze with an anytime touchdown. And we have Bobby Wagner he's got to have 10 tackles. There we go. $5 to win 51. Big thanks to Sleeper. Remember, use code Larry for 100% deposit match up to $100. Links right in the description. Terms and conditions do apply. Help support the show, and it gets you rolling on the #1 sports app, and it's a ton of fun. And it just gives you something else to kind of look at when you're watching that game. And sometimes, it's nice to have a little wagering interest, and Sleeper is a good one, outstanding, and they've got some good lines, and I think you guys would really like that. Some fantastic numbers and a lot of different ways to kind of enjoy what they got going on. All right, let's talk a little bit about the Aiyuk thing for a second. I don't know if it's real or not. I don't know if they're happy or not, but with all the receivers they do have, I just don't see. I don't know. I don't see any team that would take him on. I really don't, because of the fact that he hasn't played. He's got the major contract. He's got the injury. It was a severe injury, so I think he's kind of an untradeable guy. Jennings, on the other hand, could be very tradable. And if you told me that Jennings has a fan club in the personnel departments around the league, I wouldn't be surprised by that. I mean, nothing's a secret. I mean, I think everybody understands that Jennings is a pretty special red zone threat. Now, the Niners have never really surrounded Jennings in the perfect, with the perfect complementary weapons. But if you had big time speed and your guys were kind of, let's say you had a room full of receivers and you got some fantastic speed, but you got kind of this diva soft mentality, and nobody wants to run across the middle, and they don't block downfield, and it's just kind of it's that kind of a room. You put Jennings in that room, you're gonna, any room that includes Jennings is going to be a tougher room because he's a tough guy, man. He is a tough guy. There aren't that many receivers that I would say, yeah, you're the toughest guy on the team, but he might be the toughest guy on the team. And he's very, very serious about playing football. And the fact that now, it's funny, Trent Williams was asked about, JJ's saying he's got 5 broken ribs. And Trent's his reaction was not like, man, that's amazing. JJ's, the greatest. He was like, hey, everybody's got something. It's like, we're all hurt. Like, almost like he didn't respect that line from JJ, but I don't know. But back to the Aiyuk thing, I don't know what's going on with Aiyuk, but really, when it comes right down to it, the 49ers just have to figure out a way to get their running game going. If they can somehow get their running game going, then they can salvage this year. I think if you're realistic and you look at that schedule, the 49ers, what really happened yesterday? What really happened wasn't losing to Tampa. It was losing Fred and what that means to them going forward. That's the real loss. The loss to Tampa, heck, I mean, Tampa's probably the best team on their schedule. Tampa's probably the toughest game on their schedule. On the road, after being on the road against the Rams the week before on national TV, now go on the road against Baker Mayfield and Tampa. And yet the Niners had opportunities because Tampa was totally depleted, and the Niner defense should have played a whole lot better against Tampa's backups. But losing Fred hurt, and they lost a shootout. Unfortunately, or somewhat of a shootout. The Niner offensive line, the Niner defensive line is not getting to the quarterback after the departure of Bosa. They did not stop the run in this game. Even with Fred Warner. I mean, they did a better job at it late, but those numbers, those end of the game rushing numbers are very, 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 the way this game went, where it blurred that, because at the end there were some carries where everybody knew the Bucs were going to try to run it out, And so it's like the Niners are selling out to the run. They know, so those numbers don't look quite the way they did in the game. The Niners didn't stop the run in this game. They didn't run the ball. They didn't stop the run. If the 49ers want to be any kind of a factor, that's where it has to start, right there. They have to be able to run the ball, and they have to be able to stop the run. And right now they can't do either. So anything that they can do, you say, what would, the trade deadline's coming up. Do you have any idea of what they ought to do? Well, I mean, they've got a number of needs, right? Edge rusher is one of them. But I think even before edge rusher is somebody who can help you stop the run, and then somebody who can help you run the ball. So like Davin Godchaux, the big defensive tackle for New Orleans, I think would be a great addition for the Niners. He's a big defensive tackle. He's a really good run defender. He would definitely help them stop the run. You're going to go with Nick Martin and Tatum Bethune and your internal options at linebacker. Though I do love Chandler Martin. He's on the Ravens practice squad. I would absolutely sign him tomorrow. I would not think twice. I would poach him off the Ravens practice squad right away. He played at Memphis. He's a terrific player. Great kid, too. Chandler Martin from Memphis. I would definitely poach. That's where I would start in my replacement for Fred. But I would try to basically replace Fred internally with Bethune and with Nick Martin. But if you could get a Davin Godchaux, that would help plug up the run on that defensive line, and it would help you without Fred to have another big defensive tackle who's really great against the run. So that would help. The other thing I'd be very interested in is Joel Bitonio or Kevin. What's his name? I always butcher his name, but the gigantic guard who was just was really, really good for a number of years, and he's a veteran. I'd go after him, the veteran guard that Kevin Seitzer is his name. I forget his name. Zeitler. Yeah, Zeitler, the former Wisconsin kid who's now 35. He's in Tennessee. To me, if you're going to do anything at the trade deadline, go get a Davin Godchaux and stop the run. Go get a Kevin Zeitler or a Joel Bitonio, plug him in for Connor Colby, who's not playing well, and see if you can run the ball. Banging your head against the wall over and over and over again with the same lineup, and just saying, well, it's the best we got. I mean, it's not good enough. You need some help in the run game. If the Niners could somehow get, a little bit better in the run game, then you have offensive balance. If you have offensive balance, then you're not dropping back to pass 40 times. If you're not dropping back 40 times to pass, you probably have healthier quarterbacks. So in a lot of ways, I think if they could find one, you don't typically find offensive linemen in the middle of the year, but this situation is pretty dire. And a guy like Zeitler, I think, would be a great addition. I also think he'd be a great culture player for their locker room. They need that. They need to feel like they can pound people in short yardage, and they don't. They have a different vibe about them. They have a kind of a can't do vibe, and it's got to change. If you can somehow get a little help on your O-line, you can run the ball, you got a shot. You get a little help on your D-line, and you can stop the run, you got a shot. If you got both those things done, and you could find some rotational edge rusher, an Arden Key or somebody like that could help out, Draymond Jones or something like that doesn't cost you an arm and a leg, maybe you could do that as well. But that's what I'd be thinking going in, and then see what the next couple of weeks look like. I mean, what if the Niners get their doors blown off the next couple of weeks? Then what? Then do you entertain the idea of moving some of these superstar players that you have at some of the premium positions? You may want to, but they're not there yet. They're not there yet. The season is not lost, but they got to start running the ball. If they can't run the ball, they can't have balance. If they can't have balance, the quarterback's going to take him. Mac Jones, here's the stat of stats. Mac Jones, the last 2 weeks, has taken 20 hits. 20. How many weeks how many weeks do you think Mac Jones can continue staying upright, taking 10 hits a game? That can't continue. So they got to get offensive balance. How do you do that? You got to run the ball better. How do you do that? You got to figure out do you have the right back? Yeah, you do. His name's Christian McCaffrey. So do you have the right line? Bingo. There you're at. That's where you're at. So who can you get that can help that line? You're not going to get any young up and coming guy. That's just not going to happen. That's a draft weekend kind of a plan. But maybe you get a Batonio, maybe you get a Zeitler, maybe you get a veteran guard and you start to run the ball a little bit better. It's worth a try, especially if it doesn't cost you a ton. Let's hit some supers. Kid Tricksta. BA report is fake. Brad just reported on it. Well, either way, this isn't the first time people have suggested that there's frosty feelings between the 49ers and Brandon Aiyuk. So to say it's fake, maybe this particular story of him taking stuff off his social media is fake, but I don't know if you could just blanketly say, Aiyuk loves them and they love him and everything's hunky-dory. I don't know if I would go as far as that. I hear what Brad's saying, but that's what I would be saying. Silence says, why was the secondary so bad after Fred left? Because they have no rush. And there were some miscommunications. I mean, that one touchdown with the player in motion to, I think, Cameron Johnson, that looked like a secondary blow up, but it was really the lack of communication. Fred wasn't there to make the call. At least that's the way Shanahan described it today. Hakeem the Dream. At the end of the day, 49ers won't win a Super Bowl without a great quarterback in the building. Also, Penn State will make an inquiry about Kyle Shanahan. I mean, they can inquire all they want. I don't think Shanahan's leaving the 49ers. And I definitely don't think he's leaving the 49ers to go to Penn State. All right. Thanks to Pig and a Pickle for being the title sponsor of the Krug Show. We should tell everybody as well, we are brought to you by our good friends at Habbas Law. And 1-800-INJURED is their phone number. Habbas Law, I don't know if I told you this, but my late father was an attorney. My brother is an attorney. He's a judge. My sister's an attorney. All I ever had in my family were attorneys, basically. And my dad always used to say, hey, the difference between success and failure in life is having the right attorney. Anyway, today's show is sponsored by Habbas Law. For more than 40 years, Omar Habbas and his son Tarek have been standing up for people right here in Northern California, in the Bay Area. They're fierce, relentless attorneys. They don't back down. They don't back down until justice is done. They're rooted in the community. If you need someone in your corner, call the firm insurance companies. Hope you never call, and that's Habbas Law. They will fight to make it right. Visit them on the web at habbaslaw.com, HABBAS law.com. 1-800-INJURED is their number. They will fight to make it right. Good people, great attorneys. If you're in a pinch and you need a great attorney, Habbas Law. I recommend them highly. Anyway, that's going to do it for us. Thanks to all of you guys. Thanks to our sponsors. Links in the description. Peace.
Yeah, never met a man I've been scared of. Careful, you gon' get